Welcome to today's explainer. If you really stop to think about it, the massive scale of the digital networks we use every single day is absolutely wild. I mean, we literally carry supercomputers in our pockets. We share knowledge across the globe in milliseconds, and we connect with people we've never even met. It's a total marvel. But it's kind of easy to forget that none of this just happened by accident. So it brings up a really fascinating question. What does it actually take to turn a raw technical spark into a massive societal shift? Like, how does a clunky, nascent piece of hardware sitting on a lab workbench transform into something that everyday people use to communicate, learn, and collaborate? Well, it takes a very specific kind of mindset.
And that brings us to the exact subject of today's explainer, Scott Joy. If you look closely at his career, he is basically the ultimate blueprint for what you'd call a visionary catalyst. Joy is this pioneer who didn't just invent tech for the sake of it. He consistently identified, developed, and applied new information systems to fundamentally connect people. He always managed to see the human application hidden deep within the raw technology. Okay, so let's dive right into this. Here's our roadmap for today. We're going to trace Joy's career through 5 key phases. We've got the visionary catalyst, microprocessors meet play, pioneering the smartphone, collaborative spaces, and finally, the people's platform. Let's get into it. Starting with part 1, the visionary catalyst, bridging the gap.
Now, what's really interesting is that there's usually a massive gap between raw, complex engineering and everyday human usability. And crossing that gap, that's been the recurring theme of Joy's entire career. He acted as this essential bridge between what's technically feasible and what's actually usable for us humans. Back in 1974, Joy co-founded a futures research consulting firm called the Future Options Room, basically to explore commercial spin-offs of NASA technology. So he set himself up with the ultimate challenge right out of the gate. How on earth do we take the highest level engineering and spit it off into something the general public can actually use? Moving on to section 2, microprocessors meet play.
To actually cross that gap and build consumer tech, Joy knew for sure he couldn't just rely on developers working in a silo. So between 1976 and 1982, he set out to take a brand new invention at the time, the microprocessor, and apply it to something incredibly human, the toy and game industry. And this brilliantly illustrates his approach. He put together this highly diverse cross-functional team at his company, Scienco, which stands for Scientific Entertainment Company. He brought together engineers, marketers, toy industry experts, and game designers. By connecting all these totally different minds, they successfully made his vision a reality and brought the microprocessor into the consumer market. And the result of bringing all those folks together? A massive industry first. In 1978, Scienco developed SmartALEC. This was literally the very first microprocessor-based computer designed specifically for children. It used these cards with graphics on the front and barcodes on the back, which connected to a microprocessor and a keyboard. He wasn't just building tech, he was building tech that actually educated and engaged its users. In fact, this specific design totally paved the way for those super popular educational products you saw years later, like Leapfrog.
Let's see how this builds in section 3, pioneering the smartphone. So the crucial point here is that as technology evolved into the 1990s, Joy's focus shifted toward portable communication. He founded the Telepad Corporation and actually teamed up with the principal developers of the Amiga computer, which you might remember was the first graphical computer, to create an early handheld prototype called the Uni. Now, the Uni was a pen-operated or touch prototype that uniquely combined voice communications with a data modem. Decades before we took them for granted, this was a true working prototype for the modern smartphone. Crazy, right? And innovation was moving at a breakneck pace, heavily driven by Joy's vision for multi-purpose communication. Following that 1990 Uni prototype, Telepad released to the SL in 1991, which was one of the absolute first tablet computers to use Windows Pen computing software. Then, by 1994, Joy, who was acting as chairman and CTO, led the design of the Telepad 3. He took the company public and successfully raised over $30 million in equity capital in its very first year. The impact of this deeply design-focused approach was profound. Pen Computing magazine wrote in 1995 that the Telepad 3 was a complete rethinking of what a portable computer should be and, in our opinion, succeeded brilliantly. This just perfectly highlights how his emphasis on intuitive, visionary design genuinely redefined the portable computer space at a really critical moment in tech history. All right, pivoting to section 4, collaborative spaces, physical bridges. Now, we've talked a lot about putting hardware directly into people's hands, but Joy also heavily focused on the physical spaces where people actually gather to collaborate. Think about this for a second. Long before Wi-Fi was everywhere, in fact, way back in 1980, Joy conceived and financed the world's first internet cafe. It was called the Planet Restaurant, and it was located in Washington, D.C., literally just 3 blocks from the White House. This 200-seat restaurant featured a Futures Club lounge where he connected computer terminals so patrons could access early online news services and computer conferencing. He was physically bringing people together in a public space to experience the nascent internet, which is just mind-boggling to think about for 1980.
Decades later, he kept that same exact ethos going by designing collaborative environments at George Mason University. There, he created the 2C Lab, which stands for Creativity and Collaboration. Through this lab, he spearheaded the design of flex offices. These spaces thoughtfully integrated information and communication tech right into physical offices and small conference spaces, all to actively spark teamwork and innovation among the students and faculties.
And that brings us to Section 5, the People's Platform.
So, we've journeyed from early hardware to physical spaces, and now we arrive at Joy's current focus: building large-scale, cloud-based knowledge networks. 50. That is the number of state hubs that make up the U.S. on-air network today, and all of them feed their content directly into one centralized national hub.
To give you an idea of their mission, the organization's materials state, "A strong democracy depends on all of us." Introducing United States on Air, a nonpartisan network working to become the people's platform for democracy. Overseen by On Air Networks, which is a 501c3 nonprofit organization, this platform is set up as a completely neutral resource for citizens to connect and share knowledge.
If we break down the features of this U.S. on-air hub, it really outlines its function as a modern technological bridge for civic engagement. Powered largely by university volunteers, the platform is designed to connect citizens with their government, share nonpartisan voting information, foster civil discussion, and help Americans find common ground. It's a digital space dedicated entirely to civic engagement. But what's absolutely crucial is the on-air knowledge network system underpinning all of this. This is a unique software platform built with a very specific philosophy. It enables authors to actually own and effortlessly share their content across multiple public and custom hubs. It perfectly connects back to Joy's core career-long theme. He's using innovative software design not just to process data, but to genuinely empower people. Which leaves us with this final thought. We've seen how Scott Joy's bridged the gap between engineering and humanity over and over again. From designing the first microprocessors for kids, to pioneering early smartphones, to building democratic knowledge platforms today. So I leave you with this. How can you combine your own technical knowledge and your creative vision to foster genuine connection in our modern era? Think about how you can step up as a visionary catalyst in your own field. Thanks for joining me on this explainer, and I'll catch you next time.